Hello and a very warm welcome to this webinar on the Princess Royal Training Awards and making the most of your application for one. Very pleased to say that I have with me Sally Eley of the City and Guilds Group. I'm Michael Osbaldeston. Hello Sally.
Hello.
And we also have with us today Fenella Tallon, one of the assessors who's joining us online from Brighton. Hello Fenella.
Hello Michael.
So during the course of this webinar, we'll be telling you all about the awards. Sally will be sharing with you her 5 steps to making the most of your application, and we'll also be sharing some top tips with you. And at the end of the webinar, you'll have a chance to have your questions answered by Fenella, by Sally, and by myself. So we hope you enjoyed the webinar, and we do thank you for joining us today. So what are the Princess Royal Training Awards? Well, of course, they're awards aimed at employers. They're aimed at recognising the impact of training and learning development, whether formal or informal, on a business or an organisation's success. They're brought to you by the City and Guilds Group, and they're a way of gaining royal recognition for achieving a standard of excellence. Now, employers of all sizes, of all backgrounds and sectors are invited to apply, private, public and not-for-profit organisations. And of course it means that if you're successful in achieving a Princess Royal Training Award, then you will join some very significant names who got one in the inaugural year of 2016. They are a standard of excellence, they're not a competition. So we don't have first, second and third. You either achieve the standard of excellence or you don't. And if you don't, of course, we provide feedback to enable you to develop an even better application for the following year. So you're not competing against other organisations, you're competing against a standard of excellence. And obviously, because we have royal recognition, that standard is put at a particularly high level to ensure that only those who are truly deserving of royal recognition achieve a Princess Royal Training Award. So how do they begin to look? Well, they're based on 3 hallmarks of excellence, and these are the critical elements, and Sally will be taking you through these a little later in the webinar. But the 3 hallmarks of excellence are these. The first is about having an organisation or a company where training and learning and development are integral to the business performance of that organisation. The second is about identifying a particular business need or organisational need that you address through a training and learning and development initiative, and that it's developed efficiently, that it's developed effectively, and it's cost effective. And third, and probably the most important part of the hallmarks of excellence, is the impact that that program has on the success of the business or organisation and its people. And it's for evidence of that impact that we're asking you to provide during the course of your application for a Princess Royal Training Award. Now, I'm pleased to say I'm going to hand over to Sally, and she's going to go through the 5 steps to help you prepare the most effective and successful application for one of these awards. Over to you, Sally.
Thank you, Michael. So, the 5 steps. What should you do first? Well, we recommend that you familiarise yourself with the application planner. Now, as Michael's already said, you can see it on the screen, you can download it from our website, and it gives you all of the information about what you're going to be asked when you actually apply for one of our awards. And as well as giving you the background information, it details the criteria against which you will be scored by the assessors. So it's really important that you have a good read through of these so that you know exactly what we are looking for when looking at your application. It gives you a structure as well to provide your narrative. And I think it's important to say here that we're looking for a story. We want to see a story of what you did, what happened, what parts were there to it, and then what impact it had on you. So that we want that to come across through your application. The planner also allows you to plan your answers and gives you examples of evidence, because you will be asked to attach evidence as well. And if you've gone through all of this and you've familiarised yourself with the forms and what we're asking you, it will give you a real head start. So in terms of just moving on to the form then itself, if you've got it in front of you now, I recommend you just have a look and open it. If not, go through it afterwards. But again, read it all through first so that you don't put everything down in the first section. In terms of the form then, just to summarise what's in it, we start off with a scene setting section, and there's no marks for this part, but it is a useful context setting piece for the assessors. So here we're looking for what sector you're in, how many employees, whereabouts you're based, that kind of thing. So it just gives us that background. Then we've got the core of the application, which is the 3 hallmarks that Michael talked about, and this is where you structure your narrative. Each of these hallmarks is in 2 parts, and there's specific criteria for each part. So again, that's why I was saying have a good read through, because it's easy if you just read the top line to think, oh yeah, well I'll put that in that part, and it might be more sensible for it to go in a different section. Then there's a section on sharing best practice. At the City and Guilds group, what we want, we're all about skills for growth, and we want more and more organisations to do similar things to you. So this is your opportunity to share with others what you think could be replicable. And then there's an endorsement section, which is validation from the senior team in your organisation. So that's sort of an overview of the form. So in terms of getting to the meat on the bones, the hallmarks. Step 2. Again, if I can just repeat that this is what we're looking for here as you go through the hallmarks, is to see the before, the during, the after. You can think of it in a story way that will help you when you're actually answering the application. Hallmark number 1, as Michael said, this is all about training and learning and development being integral to the way in which you operate. We want to see that it runs through your DNA of your organisation, really, in a sense. The 2 sections here are about, firstly, that you take a strategic approach towards training, and secondly, that you have some kind of learning culture as well that's sustainable, so that, you know, it's about your people as well as about the bottom line, if you like. And it's in Hallmark 1 that you'll be asked to highlight the need that you identified in the first place that you then use the training or the learning and development programme to address. So this needs to come out in Hallmark 1. Then if we move on to Hallmark number 2, this is where we really want the nuts and bolts of what you did. So it's the detail of the programme that you're putting forward. So the 2 sections are about the planning and delivery side, number 1, and then secondly, how you judged it to be cost effective, how you measured it really. And it's the sort of things we're looking to come out here, and you'll see more when you look at the actual application planner, are things like, did you use any new technology, anything innovative about what you did? Things like this we really want to see pulled out. So try and include them when you're going in Hallmark 2. Then moving on, as Michael indicated earlier, to arguably the most important hallmark, number 3, we want to know what difference it made. So you've done all this, but so what? The so what factor really needs to come out in Hallmark 3. And again, it's not just on what difference it made to your business, although that is the first part of it. So did you improve retention? Did you increase your numbers? Whatever it was you were looking to address. But also, what impact did it have on the people who took part? What difference did it make there? Because to us, that's equally important, that people got something out of this that was going to help them not only in their jobs, but then as they progress in their careers. So those are the 3 hallmarks. Then if we move on to step 3, talked a bit about this earlier, this sharing best practice section. This is something that even if you, as I said, the majority of the time you need to spend on answering the hallmarks, because that's what we're looking for. But you do need to include something about what you would share with others. And it's an opportunity for you to inspire other people. It's a profile raising exercise. If you look at our website, you'll see examples of recipients from last year, the ones who reached the standard, the types of things that they then thought could be replicated by others. And it might be worth you having a look through this, because it will give you examples and thoughts of what you might want to choose yourself. Moving on then to step 4. This is the endorsement section. And again, although it's you're coming to the end of the form, if you don't fill this part in, but you've done everything else well, you won't reach the standard, because we really want to see that somebody senior from your organisation has also endorsed, validated what it is that you've put in. And again, we'd ask that this isn't a form-filling exercise either. The passion and the commitment that comes through in this section really stands out when it's genuine. So, you know, make sure that you've spent some time on this part too. And then in terms of the final step in this process, this is about the evidence. And we allow people to provide evidence for each of the sections of the form, well, the hallmarks. So it's, again, thinking about spending some time to get this right. We've actually got an extra webinar on the evidence alone next week. So if you are interested in that, please do register for that one too. But to summarise, what we're looking for here is 1 document per hallmark. It has to be no more than 2 megabytes and no more than 500 words per attachment, and no external links. And this is really important because last year we were inundated with evidence, and it was really difficult for the assessors to actually wade through some of it. And so this year we're introducing very strict guidelines really about what you can put. So it's, again, worth spending some time here so you make sure that you really evidence your story in the right way. So those are the 5 steps that you really need to take in terms of approaching your application. But there's a few extra tips that we think are worth sharing with you, because we know that this also sort of helps just to make sure that you put in that top application. Looking at this then, first of all, we'd suggest that you get somebody else to read through the application. It can become very easy to get too close to it. You can't see the wood for the trees. You've done all the writing. So it's always quite useful to get someone who hasn't been involved to read through what you've done. Having said that, be careful that it's not an application done by committee. So don't let too many people read it. And once you've got enough input, just think, okay, that's great. If applications are changed too much, then they start to lose the essence that they had in the first place. So what else do we suggest? That you answer the questions and keep referring to the criteria. Again, it can become quite easy to if you're skimming something quickly, to not really reference what it is you're being asked. So keep referring back and making sure that in your answers you're answering what we're actually asking of you. Another important point, please avoid jargon wherever you can. Each sector has got its own jargon, and again, it's very easy to write in that sort of way, but for us, we're really looking for you to write in as plain language as you can, please, because also, after all, it's a story, and it will come across much better if it's clearer and it's in plain language. So that's a bit of a tip there. And then finally, the last couple, make sure that you link and use the evidence, that the allowance that you're allowed to give, because that will really enhance your application, and link it. It should be fairly easy because of the way the online application is structured, but just make sure you reference it so that it is clear to the assessors. And finally, please ask us for help. We're here to help you. We realise that you can get bogged down with it, that there might be sections, criteria that you're not quite clear about. So if you want any help at all, please do get in touch. You can call us, you can email us. We are, chomping at the bit to help you. So please do ask us for help. Now I think that's my part over. I'm going to hand back to Michael now just to tell you about something new we've introduced for 2017. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Sally. I think it's very clear from the way Sally presented that the amount of enthusiasm and the passion we have here in the Sitting Hills group for the Princess Royal Training Awards is unquestionable. And the whole team that's been working on these for the past year are absolutely committed to the awards, and we know the impact that those awards have had on the recipients last year. And they're beginning to measure real benefit from receiving one of the Princess Royal's awards last year. So yes, thank you very much indeed for the 5 steps to success, Sally. Now, something slightly different in 2017, we've added a new commendation. Now, if you receive a Princess Royal Training Award, if you're judged to have achieved the level of excellence and you have been looking at equality, diversity and inclusion in that application, there is an additional commendation for applicants who evidence a particular standard of excellence within the EDI world. Now, I have to stress that this isn't instead of the Princess Royal Training Award. You have to have achieved the Princess Royal Training Award first and foremost. If there is additional evidence that you've been looking at equality, diversity, inclusion, we can add an additional commendation to the award that you've already been given. So that's in response in many ways to what employers are telling us are important in their world. Sally was talking about the evidence, and we created a level playing field because the feedback we had last year was that everybody wants to have the same opportunity of attaching the same amount of evidence. But one of the things that employers have been talking to us about recently is the importance of focusing on equality, diversity and inclusion. So an additional commendation for those who achieve an award and who can illustrate and demonstrate and evidence the fact that they've been focusing on the EDI agenda. So a little bit of a development from 2016 to 2017. And I'd like to give you a little idea of the timetable. We're obviously in the middle of applications at the moment, and the applications close on the 31st of March. So please mark that in your calendars, put it on your desk diaries, have a big sign on the wall. And the sooner you can get your applications in, the better, rather than leaving it to the last minute. It certainly sets our nerves a little bit. So if you can do that, that would be great. Once we've received the application forms, then our team of trained assessors, and Fenella, who will be with us later, is one of those, will look at all the applications, and we do assure you that all the information in those applications is completely confidential. We share none of it with anybody. When we come to tell your story, if you're successful, we don't do it until you've signed it off. So we're very, very hot on the confidentiality of the information in the application forms. But those will be assessed. If you get past the first round of assessment, then we undertake a validation visit. An assessor, together with one of the City and Guilds ambassadors from here in the City and Guilds group, will come to your business, or your organisation, and spend just less than half a day with you, looking at what you said, ensuring that what you said can be validated, and looking deeper into the sort of training and development and the impact it's had within your organisation. After that part of the validation process, we have a group of commissioners, and you can see from the photograph on your screen that that group of commissioners includes Her Royal Highness the Princess Royal. She takes a very active role in the adjudication of the organisations and companies who will receive one of her awards for training. So the Commission is the final adjudicator of the companies and organisations who will receive a Princess Royal Training Award 2017, and we would aim to announce that in the middle of August, and the celebration ceremony would be later in the year. Last year we were extremely fortunate. We had the celebration presentation at St James's Palace in November, and Her Royal Highness again was gracious enough to present the awards in 2016. So that's the process. Everybody who applies gets feedback on their application. That's a really important part of it. So it's a little bit like getting free consultancy. So wherever you get in the process, the assessors will feedback comments to you about your application, about your training and learning development. If you're unfortunately not successful in the first year of receiving one, we'll provide the feedback and guidance and hopefully enable you to build a better application for the following year. But that feedback, we know from comments from people who applied last year and who were successful, and in fact those who weren't successful last year, provides a really useful tool in terms of looking at what's going on in a business or an organisation, challenging some of the things that are happening, and having that external authority that comments on it, provides guidance and provides advice as to how things can develop in the future. So as Sally said, one of the most important elements of the Princess Royal Training Awards is that we are here to help. These awards are not about finding fault, they're about identifying excellence, and having identified excellence, sharing it with other people. So the team here, then Julia and Remy and Sally and myself and Laura and the team of assessors, are all ready to assist and to support. So please feel free to contact us either by email or by telephone and to help us talk through the sorts of things that might find useful. And as Sally said, on the 8th of March, we have another webinar which we're looking specifically at the evidence that we want you to attach. So Sally's giving you some really good tips today. If you need more guidance and more advice on the sorts of tips, then we can do that through the webinar on the 8th. So we are moving now towards the questions and answers, and we've been receiving your questions, and we have a number of questions that we want to look at. I'd like to pick up with Fenella for a start, please. Fenella, if you're still online.
Hello, yes, I'm here.
Excellent, that's good to hear, Fenella. When Paul and I, the Chief Assessor, were talking last week, he was saying that it's really important to make every word count within the application form. As an assessor, can you just give us your view and your flavour on that comment, please?
Yes, I mean, we do realise, we do know that the word count is actually quite tight on each of the hallmarks, and really, so you need to really focus on what you're telling us in each of the hallmarks. So if you can just answer the questions that are asked and really focus on them, that will help the assessors, because we're going to be marking against those questions. So we really would appreciate if you do focus in really clearly on them, and don't sort of stray into other areas, even though you may want to. Really, we want you to make the most of the marks that you're able to get from the assessment process.
Thank you, Fenella. That's really useful, and I think that you know, the number of words is limited, and it's to make sure we have a level playing field so that everybody has the same opportunity to present their evidence and their information. Again, we talked about an holistic approach to the application form. Should people see it as 3 different sections, Fenella, or should they really try and, Sally suggested, tell a story across all of them?
I think if they can try to tell a story across all of the hallmarks, that would be helpful. If there's sort of a golden thread that runs all the way through, it helps us to see what you've been doing and the story that you're telling. But again, you do need to answer the questions within each of the hallmarks, but try and make it into a package as a whole, if possible. So it's a really good idea to get somebody else to read it, as Sally was saying, to see that it actually hangs together as a document.
Thank you, Fenella. I think that's really important, and that overall nature of it is crucial, isn't it? One of the things that, again, as you know, you and I have been involved in awards for many years, and the wow factor is really important, isn't it? If you've got a lot of applications to read, then, as Sally was saying, it's very easy to edit out the wow factor and edit out the excitement that we hope people feel. As an assessor, what difference does it make to have the wow factor and the passion come through in the narrative?
It makes a real difference, because as you say, we do receive a number of applications to assess, and if you've got something really amazing to tell us, we want to hear it. And sometimes this can come through in the endorsement section, that's filled in by one of your senior team leaders, one of your senior managers, and there they really have the chance to express the wow factor and their passion and commitment to the training. But that's not to say you can't let it shine through in all the hallmarks, but yes, if you've got something really, really amazing to say, please tell us through the application.
I see that we've had another question, Michael, which is about if your organisation has achieved investors in people, can we use this as evidence? So what would we say on that one? Oh
yes, of course. I mean, that's really good evidence, and do present that sort of evidence. If you've got other awards or other recognition, and that's a relevant part of the narrative, then yes, please do present that to us. You won't get a Princess Royal Training Award just because you've got IIP status, but I think it's true to say that any organisation or company that's achieved IIP status is certainly a company which is committed to training, can evidence training, and can show that they are indeed on that pathway to being a sustainable learning culture. So yes, please do use that sort of material as evidence towards applying for a Princess Royal Training Award. Now, Sally, there's one just saying, how much does it cost to apply for a Princess Royal Training Award, and does a ceremony, do we have to pay to attend the ceremony?
Well, this is a good question to answer, because you don't have to pay anything. It's completely free to enter, and the feedback reports are also free. There are no costs other than your own time. And we don't charge people either to come to the ceremony. This is part of the City and Guilds Group's, if you like, celebration of excellence in skills development. We invite you. Last year, I think it was 3 places that each organisation had to come to the ceremony. So there are no costs involved in that, no.
Thank you very much indeed. We've had a question about how do you register for the webinar on the 8th. Remy, you're the person responsible for webinars. What on earth do you do to register for the 8th of March webinar?
Thanks, Sophie, for that question. We can send you a link to the webinar after this session. So you can also access the links on our website, but I will definitely send you the link to the webinar after this session.
Thank you very much indeed, Remy. And in fact, we will send a link through to this webinar, which will be on our website. It's recorded, so if you want to listen to it again, look at the slides again, or share it with colleagues, then please feel free to do that. So there's a good question about graphs in evidence that's just popped up, and it's a very good one. We do encourage people, in fact, provide us with graphs and with statistics within the page, attached page. Now, last year, as Sally said, a lot of people attached an awful lot of documents, which made life quite hard work. Please extract the specific pieces of evidence that you want us to look at and put it into the single page. Graphs and metrics are a really important way for the assessor to see that the narrative is supported by evidence. Sally, have you got any comments to make on that?
Not on that one, no. I've just seen another question come in,
right.
So I'm too enthusiastic here. Someone else has asked if they need to express interest in order to apply. Do they need to express their interest and apply in order to apply? And the answer is no, you don't. You can just go straight to reply, but we do encourage you to register your interest, because that means we can also send you bits and pieces that you might find useful, tips and that kind of thing as you're going forward. So you don't need to, but we encourage you to do so.
Right, so there's a good tip. If you want to carry on getting information from us, then register your interest, and then we can make sure you have invitations to webinars that we can provide you with information as things go on. We've an interesting one too here about categories. There aren't any categories on the Princess Royal Training Awards. There is simply the Princess Royal Training Award. So you're not competing against anybody. You're actually competing against a standard of excellence. Sally, you picked another question there.
Another question someone's asked, if you've achieved CQC outstanding, can you use brief and relevant quotes from its report? Absolutely yes. Now again, the key here is within the evidence to make them brief and relevant. So that is exactly what we're looking for, quotes from others that endorse what it is that you're saying. So that sounds like perfect evidence to me. It's just that it's just highlighting the right ones, really. So perfect.
Right, and we have a question about the cost of just training staff on the development need. Return on investment is really important, isn't it? Fenella, as an assessor, what sort of comments do you have regarding seeing the sort of costings and the return on investment in an application form?
Yes, good point, Michael. It's a great question. It's really useful for the assessors to see what the costs of the training have been. It's especially useful for us to know what your planned costs were and whether you moved away from them or whether the cost didn't work out as you had expected, and then what the return on investment was, because it gives us an idea of the scale of the training and the resources that you put into it. Because it's not necessarily the case that if you've spent a huge amount on training, that then actually you haven't got much return. you have to say, well, you know, you have to weigh up what the value of the training was, and that's part of what the assessment process is about. So if you can include that information, that will be really helpful for us.
Thank you, Fenella, for that. Somebody's asked just for us to repeat the closing date is the 31st of March, but you can, of course, get your application form in any time between now and then. And if you, when you go online, you'll see that the application form is online, so you can begin to complete it. You can go back to it. You don't have to do it all at once. You can go back to it. But as long as we receive it by the 31st of March, then that's fine. But we do encourage you, please, if you can complete it earlier than that, then that's all to the good. We've also been asked if you get a receipt of your application form being received here. And indeed you do. And if you don't hear back from us after you've submitted a form, then please get in touch with us. Give us 24 hours or over a weekend, 48 hours, but we will receipt every application form that comes in, and we will do that manually. So it's not a piece of technology. One of the team here will send an email to confirm that we've received your application form. And as I say, if you don't receive that receipt from one of my colleagues, then please do follow it up, drop us an email, give us a ring and say you sent it but you haven't heard back, because that's you know, it's important that you know that we've received it, and it's important for us to know if we haven't actually received it. Just to remind you too that after the webinar we will be asking for feedback on the webinar, and the best way that we can improve these webinars is by you commenting on them and providing us with feedback and sharing your thoughts with us, so we can do that. Now, we've got a question about eligibility, and the organisation is an industry charity, and so it's different from perhaps a straightforward employer. We are open to applications from anybody who employs people across the United Kingdom, whether that's third sector, whether that's employers, whether that's public sector, or whether that's an organisation which represents other industries. If you have undertaken a piece of training that's had an impact on your organisation or company, and you can evidence that, the impact of that training, then that's what the Princess Royal Training Awards are here to reflect. Sally, do you want to say a couple of words about that at all?
I think you've answered that one actually, Michael. I don't think there is anything to add to that.
Thanks for that, Michael. Thank you very much for the question. What you can do is you can send us an email on the help@princessroyaltrainingawards.com and send us your best contact telephone number to contact you on, and we will call you straight back to talk to you in more detail about your question. Thank you.
So, Fenella, just before we close the webinar, do you have any final comments that you'd like to make to the applicants as one of the assessors?
Yes, we really welcome your applications. Even if you think that your application is a little bit early to apply, some people like to get the feedback from the assessment process, and it might help their ongoing learning and development program. So do feel free to do that. But again, if you're ready to apply and your training has shown remarkable benefits to your people and to the organisation, please do submit an application. We're really looking forward to hearing from you.
Thank you for that, Fenella. Sally, just before I come to you for your final thoughts, we've had a question from a borough council saying, does it need to be for the whole council or can it be for one of the services? Well, actually it can be either. If the whole council's been involved in a training programme that's had a major impact on the service it's delivered, then go for it. If you're delivering a particular service within a council, then that's fine to apply for a Princess Royal Training Award to recognise the impact that's actually that's happened within that particular area. Sally, finally, any comments from you before we close the webinar down?
Just to remember that this is a story. We're looking for your story. So that would be the thing I would want you to leave with, thinking, I'm writing a story here.
Well, thank you for that, and thank you to everybody who's been on the webinar today. Thank you to Fenella down in Brighton for sharing your thoughts with her, and to Remy for joining in, and to Julia, our other colleague, who's been helping with the questions and answers. We've had some tremendous questions, we've got the final one, which is if you've got an external training provider, that's fine. Training can be delivered in-house, it can be delivered by an external provider, it can be delivered by a consultant. It doesn't matter who delivers the training, it's the impact of that training on your business or organisation that we're looking for. So thank you to the team. Thank you to you for joining the webinar. We look forward to receiving your application for the Princess Royal Training Award 2017, and we look forward to meeting you hopefully at somewhere rather glamorous later in the year when hopefully somebody rather glamorous will present it to you. So thank you all. You don't need good luck because Sally's giving you the top tips and the steps to producing an absolutely superb application form. And with that, I wish you a very good day and thank you for joining us. Good day.